Milwaukee is named after the city that means beer. It's the fastest growing major beer in the country.
Starting off our list is Old Milwaukee, a budget-friendly beer introduced during the mid-1930s. However, the business only took off during the 70s. Who wouldn't want to crack open a beer to wash down dinner after a long day of work? Old Milwaukee was initially created as an alternative to premium beers like Schlitz or Beck's, and their marketing strategy, offering high-quality beer at a low price, had won over many working-class families and became a huge hit. It eventually became one of the most popular beers in America. Their slogan, "This doesn't get any better than this," featured on their posters, had made its way through the competitive market, earning them a strong spot. Old Milwaukee's formula was renowned for its smooth, crisp taste and a slightly malty flavor and a blend of American and European hops. The distinct brewing method and classic lingering technique had created a memorable taste that left consumers wanting more. Additionally, to boost the company's revenue and connection with its consumer base, Old Milwaukee sponsored numerous local events, festivals, and community gatherings. The company also took part in promotional partnerships with bars and restaurants, providing customers with special deals or promotions.
The place Gottlieb Heilemann chose to brew Old Style. Heilemann's Old Style is brewed with sparkling, pure Wisconsin spring water.
Old Style. A Chicago staple, Old Style beer was produced by the Old Style Brewing Company and was one of the typical American lagers with a crisp taste and rightly balanced bitterness. Did that unlock your hidden old memory? Well, it may make you want to go back in time and grab a can or two of Old Style. Old Style is renowned for its unique formulation called the double fermentation process, which is the prime reason their beers tasted richer than others and were extra carbonated. Old Style was initially called the Old Times Lager. The name would later be changed due to a lawsuit and remained the same ever since. Old Style did not completely cease its production. However, according to various reviews, the taste of their brews has completely dropped. The change in ownership could be one of the reasons, as they consistently changed the recipe, and originally the company had primarily used only malt as their source of fermentable sugar, but the new replacements like rice and corn, while brewing, had changed the original formulation. And if you're craving something similar to Old Style, grab a can of PBR. Perhaps they're not that different at all.
Pearl Beer brings 1100 springs straight from the heart of Texas.
Pearl Beer. Speaking of think local, drink local, we'll now talk about one of the most popular local breweries, Pearl Brewing Company. With their roots deeply embedded in Texas, they were once one of the breweries with local and traditional recipes that included malt, hops, yeast, and water. Their ingredient list may not be extravagant, however, their beer formulation is anything but ordinary. In 1916, Pearl Brewery became the largest brewery in Texas and increased their production from 6,000 barrels to 11,000 a year. As popular as they were until the late 70s and a little after that, the new millennium did no good for the company. The company was completely shut down after successfully functioning for over a century. A brand that was once regarded as one of the trusted choices by Texan beer drinkers would be no more. The Pearl Brewery facility is now redeveloped into a space called the Pearl District, and it includes Southline residents, Sellers residents, food halls, shops, and restaurants.
Let myself introduce me. I'm Schlitz.
You're out of Schlitz.
There's just one Schlitz, yeah, nothing else comes near.
Schlitz Beer. The beer that made Milwaukee famous. I'm talking about Schlitz. Founded in 1849 in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, finding a bottle of Schlitz outside of the state was out of the question as their original facility ceased their production. Schlitz came up with the idea of producing beer in brown bottles during the early 20th century, and beers before then had normally been produced in transparent bottles. The primary idea behind this innovative creation is that transparent bottles allowed for humidity, UV rays, sunlight, and more to penetrate, causing the beer to lose flavor and become skunky. And so, if you buy your beer in a brown bottle today, you know who to thank. Their strategic marketing was one of the reasons they were one of the biggest breweries in America for over half a century. Slogans like, "When you're out of Schlitz, you're out of beer," or move up to quality, move up to Schlitz, got the consumers moving, especially when they began selling promotional items like trays, coasters, and glassware with their branding on them. If you happen to have collected any of these, let us know in the comments down below.
Schaefer after Schaefer.
Go out and get a Schaefer and be Schaefer people too.
Schaefer Beer. The official beer sponsor of the Brooklyn Dodgers, Schaefer Beer was one of the primary competitors in the American beer market during the early 20th century. Every sip of Schaefer Beer gave a mild aftertaste, which was highly enjoyed by the beer consumers in America. One of the best strategies was to provide customers with budget-friendly prices and high-quality beer. This attracted a swarm of consumers and made Schaefer one of the most chosen brands in the restaurant, hotel, and homes. They eventually became an integral part of cuisine and home cooking as well. Cooking chicken with Schaefer Beer was widely practiced back then. However, the change in ownership through the years had made the production quality plummet, which made consumers switch their choices. And during the years when they actively produced beer, quality issues within the company did some damage to their image. While it's common amongst breweries, it affected their reputation, and despite the ups and downs, they still remain an important part of the American brewing history. Before we move on with this delicious journey through the history of beer, be sure to like, share, and subscribe so that you never miss another great video like this one in the future.
Grain Belt Beer. It's a justice of the pizza.
Grain Belt Beer. A beer reborn from the brink of closure, Grain Belt Beer. First brewed by the Minneapolis Brewing Company in Minneapolis, Minnesota, they made other beers like lager, ale, porter, and cream ale. However, it was Grain Belt that received the spotlight and became their best seller. Grain Belt Beer was a regionally known beer, especially in the upper Midwest. Their journey is not a simple one. They were quite popular until Prohibition. Prohibition would last in America from 1920 to 1930, and breweries had faced significant change and closure due to tight rules and government legalization. The Grain Belt Brewery was shut down in 1929 and started back up again in 1933 once Prohibition had been repealed. The friendly beer with the friendly flavor was advertised, and later the introduction of Grain Belt Premium had made their brand a bigger hit than ever. But the company didn't survive the market, closing down its doors in 1975. And like a phoenix rising from the ashes, Grain Belt made a recovery and came back in 2002 and still produces in limited quantities.
I want the biggest steak you got and a bottle of Lowenbrau. Steak and Lowenbrau. Dolan, you're a genius.
Lowenbrau. Although it wasn't produced in America, it was still one of the most popular beers from Munich, Germany. Lowenbrau translates to Lion Brewery, which is represented in its logo. Among various beers, they produced Lowenbrau Original Hells, which was the best-selling product because it had a hint of sweetness and was perfectly balanced with bitterness. Another beer called Lowenbrau Dark was renowned for its unique blending and color, and beers are usually light and amber, but Lowenbrau Dark, as its name would suggest, was quite darker than others, with notes of caramel and roasted malt. As interesting as it sounds, the sales never matched the Lowenbrau Original, and if you're craving one now, well, Lowenbrau Munich is the place for you. The production is still on, and they serve them at every Oktoberfest since 1810.
Rolling Rock Premium Beer, brewed by the Latrobe Brewing Company and imported in bottles and cans from Latrobe, PA.
Rolling Rock. The Latrobe Brewing Company launched Rolling Rock in 1939, branching off from their regular German-style beers. The blending reached the audience that they targeted and soon became a popular drink in the East. However, with the change in ownership, Rolling Rock began to be distributed beyond the East Coast. It comes with a speculative story. Have you ever noticed that number 33 printed behind the ingredient list on cans and bottles? The number 33 is subject to various myth and rumor, some claiming it referred to the original brewery's formula or other aspects of its history. The rumor doesn't end there, though. Some suspect that the company had potentially had something to do with Prohibition, as it was repealed in 1933. So tell me, what's the legend you've heard about the 33 on Rolling Rock? Be sure to let me know about it in the comments down below. Griesedieck Beer. The Griesedieck family established the brewery in the late 19th century and brewed their beer with a unique flavor using traditional recipes and methods. Anton Griesedieck owned a series of breweries, and according to records, they had a significant impact on local brewers. However, it didn't last for long. Their economic conditions became worse in the 50s, and even after a revival in the 80s, they just couldn't sustain themselves in the market. Do you have memories of Griesedieck? Let me know in the comments below.
Blatz is still brewed the old world way for the same classic taste that shaped the destiny of Milwaukee.
Blatz Beer. Blatz Beer was created in the prime brewing hub of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. It was initially produced by Ballantine Blatz Brewing and later expanded production. Blatz's marketing strategy, along with their quality production, had helped them to secure a strong position and place in consumers' hearts. Perhaps you remember how they consistently emphasized advertising on television, radio, and more. I'm sure the slogan is well remembered by most of us. Blatz Beer brewed the American way. Their distribution technique would be exceptional, as they gave equal importance to every type of business. This included hotels, bars, and retail outlets at a very affordable price. Who wouldn't want to sip on a chilled beer after a long day of work, having drained themselves both mentally and physically? Blatz Beer didn't limit itself to just one type. They brewed both lagers and dark beers that attracted a wide range of customers. Every company has a dark time, and Blatz Beers came by the late 1970s. After the Pabst Brewing Company bought Blatz out, it dealt with a lot of challenges, and Blatz just couldn't compete in the market. It led to the decline of the company, and they decided to cease production forever.
Schmidt Big Mouth in a glass by itself, and inside the same great beer every time.
Schmidt's Beer. Schmidt's Beer is one of the most popular brands in the Mid-Atlantic region, and every business had potential, and Schmidt's was one of the greatest examples of that. Schmidt's began their journey from scratch. They were a small brewery but eventually grew bigger and survived the severe competition in America. Christian Schmidt was first employed in the brewing business and soon became a partner, and he sure is the right example of how much hard work can change our fate. But did he and his sons change the fate of the company? Well, most certainly believe that he did. He expanded the business way beyond the Mid-Atlantic region and increased production by up to 50%. By 1970, Schmidt's Beer had become popular and was capable of producing over 1 million barrels annually. However, as new competition would emerge in the market, after running for more than 3 centuries, Schmidt's had to shut their doors forever.
Who brews the flavor in beer today? Ballantine brews it. Ballantine's beer.
Ballantine. One of the oldest beer brands in America is Ballantine Ale. Established in 1840 by Peter Ballantine, their beer formulation was quite strong, which had given people the chance to explore new flavors. As the company took up the pace and grew popular, they eventually began sponsoring. Artist Jasper Johns had created a famous sculpture of 2 Ballantine XXX ale cans titled Painted Bronze. One of their strategies to attract customers was using well-known celebrities in their marketing. Another one of their strategies was to stand out with their production of Ballantine ale in green bottles. The green bottles easily stood out on the shelf and became an icon themselves. As popular as Ballantine was, they lost it all during the late 20th century. The revival of the ale in 2014 never got as popular as they expected it to be.
My beer is Rheingold, the dry beer.
Think of Rheingold whenever you buy beer.
Rheingold. Rheingold beer became popular in no time and gained a great reputation for high-quality production of lager. It was one of the top-selling beers in New York from the 1940s to the 50s, and they lasted in the market until the late 20th century. The initial product in the market was Rheingold Extra Dry. The basic ingredients like malt, yeast, and hops are known, however their exact recipe is still kept a secret until today. Perhaps you remember the Miss Rheingold contest. It was a modeling contest that ran from 1940 to 1965, and the winner got the chance to be the face for Rheingold beer that year. This kind of brand marketing strategy was implicit and clever, and besides that, they supported and sponsored sports teams and local events in New York, so they didn't lose their bond with customers.
Falstaff always gives you man-sized pleasure because every skill known to the brewer's art is used to make the finest beer possible.
Falstaff Beer. A company named after the Shakespearean character of Sir John Falstaff in 1903 was Falstaff Beer, one of the beers deeply missed by many. The production of this beer peaked during the mid-20th century with over 7 million barrels. Falstaff was renowned for its famous Falstaff lager. During the Prohibition era in the early 20th century, unlike most other breweries, Falstaff decided to produce non-alcoholic beverages and various other products to survive the loss and resume production after Prohibition came to an end. By the 1960s, Falstaff had become the third largest brewer in America with several other plants throughout the country. But in the end, they were all shut down.
Light's less filling and it really tastes great. So I bought this light for that renowned yet humble man.
Billy Beer. Billy Beer was introduced in 1977 by Billy Carter, the alcoholic brother of President Jimmy Carter. The beer was initially launched to publicize Billy's celebrity status, and the packaging says it all. It was brewed by the Fall City Brewing Company of Louisville, Kentucky, and distributed under the name of Billy Beer. The slogan printed on cans, "I had this beer brewed up just for me. I think it's the best I ever tasted, and I've tasted a lot, and I think you'll like it too." Billy Beer became quite famous, and over 10 songs were written about it and released at that time.
Gettleman Beer. Flash pasteurized Gettleman has real keg flavor. It's the toast of fine beers. Happy days.
Gettleman Beer. How could we forget Gettleman Beer, one of the top-selling beers in Milwaukee, Wisconsin? They were renowned for launching a beer called Milwaukee's Best, but was it actually the best though? Gettleman's production was local for quite a very long time, and that's the reason why they're considered the pride of Milwaukee. It was doing great business until a new beer called Miller Lite would be launched into the market. Gettleman did not take any time to gain back its position, and they released 2 brand new drinks, Milwaukee's Best Light and Milwaukee's Best Ice. They entered the market with a new tagline, "Old-time quality, old-time price." However, the legacy of Gettleman came to an end in the later years, leaving everyone with only memories. Kessler's Beer. Kessler's Beer was founded in the late 19th century by Michael Kessler, and although not as popular as others, it had its own fan base. Kessler's mostly focused on regional production while launching products in local markets in the Louisville, Kentucky area. However, they became immensely popular beyond Kentucky, and the company would be enforced to increase production and facilities. The company's revenue had progressively increased until the mid-20th century, but things never remained the same, and like other companies, Kessler slowly faded out in time.
Isn't that something? Now Lucky opens without an opener.
Lucky Lager. The beer that brings good luck. Lucky Lager was one of the top-selling beers in American history. Lucky Lager was established exactly after the Prohibition period had come to an end. The timing was right, and they picked up the pace in no time. Their 11-ounce stubby bottles were widely popular, and how many of those could you have in one sitting? The packaging and label were one of their effective marketing strategies, and the history of the label began with the design of the very distinctive red cross with a circle in the center. In addition, they also printed the date of the beer, the words Lucky Lager on both arms of the cross, and the 4-leaf clover logo to indicate good luck. This easy drinking beer went off the market in the late 20th century and was never revived again.
If you want a taste that goes way beyond ordinary, just tell them, "Give me a Dixie."
Dixie Beer. The beer that belongs to New Orleans, Louisiana was founded by the Falstaff Brewing Company. The name Dixie Beer comes with a history. It was chosen to primarily attract consumers of Southern heritage and soon became a New Orleans staple. Dixie Beer was doing well in business until an unfortunate tragedy occurred, Hurricane Katrina in 2005. The hurricane had caused significant damages to the Dixie Brewing facility, leading to production delays and disruptions. The brand would then be shut down for a few years, but the company eventually revived and is producing beer in limited quantities. Ritz Beer. Ritz Beer was produced by the Ritz Brewing Company during the early 20th century. The brand had mostly focused on local drinkers on the West Coast, and unlike other beers, it was considered a premium beer that came in elegant packaging. The pricing of Ritz was significantly higher than other beers in the market, naturally attracting only customers who valued a more high-end beer. However, the company later faced financial issues and eventually went out of business. Let me know in the comments if we missed anything. Also, be sure to share this video and these memories with a friend. Like, subscribe, and turn on your notifications so that you never miss another one of these great memories in the future. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.